Even though the first video didn't do well, I wanted to make a follow-up video because, in my personal opinion, I think I accidentally killed its momentum by releasing my video on the Acolyte's first episode. Am I going to make a video on the next upcoming episodes? Nope. When it came to making the first fan-made Skylanders video, I was having so much fun making it that I actually wanted to do it again. Not just because I like building the robots and drawing the characters, but I actually enjoyed writing these characters' backstories and giving them histories that I can maybe expand upon on a later date. I was actually planning to do something with the Archean Queen I brought up in the first video, but I'll save her for later if this video does well. So all I have to say is that if you want me to do this again, it is integral that you like and share this video around so I can see that you want content like this. So today we're going to do exactly that. Go over the lore of one of the other custom Skylanders that I made, because if I did two, the video would just be super long, and a lot of you seem to prefer the shorter videos. And she was also just a pain to make. Not because writing the lore was hard, but drawing the character was extremely difficult. The app that I used to draw her crashed twice. Not once, twice. And it crashed on one of the most complex parts of her drawing, meaning that I lost access to her over 2 times. That's why she wasn't included in the first video. She was just awful to draw. But I do like the result I got. But before we begin, I need to quickly point out that the drawn characters are not mine. They are just drawings using a character creator as a base. So the link to the original work is in the description below because the artist deserves credit for their original work. Everything else is my original work and ideas, like the stories. And speaking of original stories, a lot of you guys post about your own Skylanders and I want a place for you all to share it. So I'm currently working on setting up a Discord called the Skylanders Archivist. So I'll let you guys know when that's fully up and running, but with that out the way, let's get started. StitchCraft is a doll of the dark element that's roughly the size of Stealth Elf, and I think that she's probably one of my favorite designs I've drawn yet. Not just out of these 3, but all the drawings I've ever made so far. I kinda try to make her look like one of those stuffed dolls that many people would have as a kid, and I decided to use a made doll as a reference because I need to get better with drawing around shoulders and skirts. But with that out the way, let's get into her lore. StitchCraft's story doesn't start with her per se, but instead it starts out with her parents, the white craftsman and the silver seamstress. The 2 Luminites were the greatest in their craft, creating hundreds of items in their respective careers before the 2 eventually decided to settle down together in a mansion on top of a large life-filled island full of plants and animals. As the 2 continued to live together, the seamstress yearned for a child of her own, but due to a curse inflicted upon her by a past client who was unsatisfied with her work, she couldn't. After learning about the curse and discovering that there was no real way to remove it, the seamstress was devastated, and after seeing his spouse in this disheartened state, the craftsman decided that if she couldn't have a child of her own, he would make one for her. He would descend into the depths of the mansion where he would turn the old, tattered workshop into a laboratory, learning how to harness tech and life together. He knew that a normal robot wouldn't suffice. If it couldn't grow, it would constantly remind his wife of her curse, and if it couldn't feel or think for itself, it would just make it feel like another one of the many robots already in Skylands. He would try to design the robot to his wife's likeness, but it would end up looking pretty mechanical since he didn't really know how to make something that modeled a person. During a dark and stormy night, he would go down to his laboratory and forget to close the door. And due to the fact that the seamstress was scared of thunder, she would go to the lab in search of her husband and eventually find him. At first, the craftsman was apologetic, as he wanted to keep this a secret from her until he was finished and surprise her, along with the fact that he promised her that he wouldn't push himself so hard when he was engineering. But instead of being mad or upset, the seamstress let a soft smile creep across her face, and told him that creating life needs 2 people, not 1. The 2 would continue to work together from there, the seamstress making the robot look more doll-like by giving her a dress and making her more feminine, while the craftsman continued to make progress into actually bringing her to life. The 2 deciding to make her skin gray because of a funny mix-up with the dye, which the 2 look back on fondly. When the day came, the 2 would use an Archean battery to power her, draining the entirety of it before she sparked to life. When she opened her eyes and smiled at her loving parents for the first time, the 2 were absolutely elated to see her breathing, only for her eyes to dim. She had unfortunately run out of power, but instead of sulking, the craftsman got an idea. He ran to a nearby cupboard only to grab a piece of petrified darkness from it. He knew that the petrified darkness was strong enough to power an Archean battlesuit, so maybe, just maybe, it could power her. But his wife showed immense amounts of concern and stopped him. She knew what petrified darkness could do, as her mother was a former Skylander who fought an army made of it a decade prior. But her husband pleaded with her to trust him, which she did. He He took the spare power core he had in his lab and slowly lowered the petrified darkness into it, the energy within turning a dark and wicked purple before he eventually hooked it up to his daughter, the two bracing themselves if the worst came to pass, only for their daughter's eyes to spark back to life, now a vibrant shade of purple as she hugged her parents with what little strength she had. And things weren't that bad afterwards. The two parents would go on to raise her as their own. Yes, there would be the occasional darkness-fueled temper tantrums every once in a while, but life was relatively calm for the three. Over the years, she would learn how to create items and other objects using her dark powers, but most of the time she would create oversized sewing needles or a pair of scissors whenever she was doing arts and crafts with her parents, which would drive her mother up the wall to the craftsman's amusement. But one day she decided that she wanted to go out into the world and find her purpose in it. Even though the craftsman and seamstress didn't want to see her go, they knew that she also had a life that she wanted to live. So they told her that she would always have a home before letting her off on her adventure away from them. She would wander Skylands trying to find her purpose, occasionally helping whoever she came across, either sewing up the wounds of the sick or injured or using her knack for engineering to help a stranger with their ship, along with fighting the random villain who terrorized a town once in a while. Many of the local populace would begin to call her StitchCraft, the hero of the Isles, and her enemies the Princess of Darkness, but she herself preferred the former instead of the latter. One day, on the way to a place called Cloudbreak Islands to help out a friend that she's made on her journeys, she would stumble upon a jouster in his undead ostrich fighting a group of trolls. This was one of the strangest occurrences that she's ever witnessed, but once she realized that the trolls were the ones attacking the undead pair, she raised her hand and once her dark scissors materialized, once her scissors returned to her, she quickly made her way down the hill and checked on the rider and his ostrich, only to learn that his name was Fright Rider and his ostrich was Ozzy. He would ask her where she learned how to do that, and she would respond that she didn't know. It was almost instinctual to her at this point, and would explain to him that she's been wandering Skylands trying to find her purpose. Fright Rider told her that he knew about her escapades to a degree and suggested to her that she should join the Skylanders, and that she may have already found her purpose, protecting those who could not protect themselves, and she decided to take him up on that offer. Life for StitchCraft wouldn't change that much. She would still wander Skylands and help out whoever she could find, but she would always know that she has friends that she could rely on if she needs them. But with that out the way, let's get on to her kit. When it comes to StitchCraft, her combat style is swift and complex. Her first attack is when she summons her scissors as two swords and attacks in a similar manner to Starkiller from The Force Unleashed 2, which means there are going to be combos abound. If you mash the X or square button 3 times, you'll do the basic swing attack that leaps into itself, which means you can repeatedly mash the attack button without having to wait for the attack to reset. If you press the X button twice, wait a second, and then press the X button twice again, you'll perform a combo move that is exactly the same as the She Cho strike in The Force Unleashed 2, and if you don't know what that is, it's this attack, which will lock you into it until you're hit again or the combo finishes. If you press the X or square button twice and then press the Y or triangle button, you'll perform an attack that is similar to the Sith strike move, but instead of lightning coming out of the sword, it just stretches to compensate for the range. And finally, if you press the Y button by itself, StitchCraft will combine her scissors and swing them forwards like a heavy attack, which does a hefty amount of damage. And if you hold the Y button down and release it, it will do a slam attack that stuns enemies, which is the exact same as snapshots. The second path, which I'd like to call the Speed of Darkness, mainly involves the dash button, aka the B button. The first upgrade you get in this path is the Dark Dash, which is a simple yet effective upgrade for your basic dash using the B button. Think of it like a Shade Cloak, where you're invulnerable during your dash and it's going to take some time until you can get those invincibility frames back. Your second upgrade is called Blackened Heart, and to activate it, you have to hold the B button down after you use your dash, which will cause her to run at a speed close to double her normal speed, and she will stop dashing if you either use the attack button, jump, or let go of the joystick. And to balance this out, if you get hit at all by an enemy, it will knock you back. And finally, her third upgrade is Piercing Shadow, which is exactly what you think it is. It's an upgrade to Dark Dash that allows her to pass through enemies and do damage to them. And if you mash the B button, she will dash forward and throw her sword like a boomerang. And with that out the way, let's get to her 2 Wow Pows, which I think is what the Soul Jam upgrades are called in the fanbase. If you press B and Y and hold them down at the same time for 3 seconds, it will drain a third of her health bar and activate her main Wow Pow, Princess of Darkness, which will turn her into a black shadow radiating darkness and boost the damage of your attacks and make her invulnerable for 7 seconds. But it does have a cooldown, so a person can't just spam it. And once you get down to 1/3 of your health and use it, you will be down to only 1 health. so you got to be careful when using it. Her second WoW POW is Forbidden Knowledge, which will unlock one of the unselected upgrade paths at a cost. Quite literally. All the prices are now going to be triple what they originally were going to be. Even though I think she's a bit overpowered, I still feel like I did pretty good with this one. But with that out the way, this is where I'm going to end this video. Like always, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, share this around so I can grow the channel, and I will see you all in the next one.